Hey guys, yesterday we learned about the law of sines, but it turns out that there is also a law of cosines. And we are going to use it to find both missing side lengths and missing angle measures. So the picture would still be about the same. When you look at a triangle, angles will be capital letters and the side opposite will be a lowercase letter. And that happens every single time. So you see that capital B, and when you go across, little b. And then capital C, and then across, little c. So there are three different formulas that go with this law. Now you won't have to use all three every single time. It's just you're going to use what is given to you. So for example, if you are given angle A, you're going to use the formula that has capital A. And notice that with these, if I'm doing cosine of capital A, the equation equals little a. Okay, and then same thing for the next one. If you have angle B, then the equation needs to equal little b. And if you have angle C, the equation needs to equal little c. But the pattern is always the same for each of them. A squared is equal to b squared plus c squared. So the other two sides that are not used here, minus 2bc, so the same from here, cosine of capital A. So the outsides will always match, and then the other two will be inside. And that is the same for all of them. Okay, so we're going to do the same as yesterday where we find missing side lengths and then missing angles. One thing is when you are using your Inspire calculators, make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. So you're going to have to mess with your settings a little bit. Okay, so let's take a look at our first example. So for these, we are finding the missing side. So as you can see, angle X, or not angle, side X, is right here. So I need the angle that's across from it. That is going to be what we are taking the cosine of. So since we're trying to find this, we're going to start with x squared is equal to, now the other two sides that we haven't used, so 16 squared plus 28 squared. And if I'm following the formula, it'll now be minus 2. 2's always there. 16 and 28, but this time they're not squared, they're just regular, times the cosine. So here's my x. I want the angle that's across from it, so 127. Okay, so the only issue that we have here is that this is squared, and I want it just to be normal x. So to get rid of a square, we would square root. So regular x is going to be square root of everything that we just wrote. Okay, so all that's left to do is to type in everything starting from right here onwards. So you can simplify as you go, but my suggestion is to just type it in all at once. Your Inspire can do it. So when I type it in, I get 39.7. And this triangle is being measured in inches. So it's a long formula, but luckily we could just type it all in. So let's do two more for the practice. Okay, so looking at this one, this is our missing side, so we have to know the angle across from it, which we do. So we're going to start out with x squared is equal to the other two sides that we have, so 12 squared plus 25 squared minus 2 times 12 and 25. So again, these are the sides that we already know, times the cosine of the angle that's across, so cosine 36. Now we just want regular x, so we need to take the square root of that entire right side. And then type that all into the calculator. And when I do it, I get 16.8. And this triangle is measuring in miles. Okay, and one more similar to that. Here's our third example. This time there is no picture, but as we did yesterday, it's a lot easier if you do have a picture to look at. So I'm gonna draw a triangle. So A, B, and C. And they're telling us that the measure of angle C is 88 degrees, AC is 22, and BC is 11.5. Find AB. So AB is this slant here. So again, whatever you're looking for, you need to know the angle across from it, which we do. So we're going to have x squared is equal to the two other sides that we have. So 22 and 11.5. So 22 squared plus 11.5 squared minus 2, those same two numbers, cosine of that angle that was across, so 88. Now we'll take the square root of both sides. And then type this all into the calculator, making sure that it is in degree mode. And when I do this, I get 24.5. And this triangle is measuring in feet. Okay, so that is finding a missing side length. It is pretty straightforward. Make sure that you are plugging in the correct answers, or I'm sorry, the correct values. I cannot stress enough, the side and opposite angle will always be on the outside of this equation. Okay, so this was finding side lengths. But we could also use this formula to find missing angle measures. Unlike yesterday, there is no ambiguous case. Whatever you get is the only answer, so you're only ever going to get one number. But let's look at this first one. Find the missing angle, round to the nearest tenth. So as you can see, there's an angle that's marked X because it's unknown. So we definitely need the side that's opposite of it. So when you are setting up your equation, you always start with one of the sides. And since we are trying to solve for this X, we have to start with this side. So it's going to be 10 squared equals, now the other two sides, so 11 squared plus 13 squared minus 2 times 11 and 13 times the cosine of this angle that we didn't know. So I'm going to leave it as X. When we are solving for a variable, we need that variable to be by itself. And right now, all of this junk is in front of it. So we need to move it all. So I'm going to do kind of like order of operations, adding and subtracting. That's the first thing that I'm going to move. So this 11 squared and 13 squared, they are both being added. So if I wanted to move them over to the left side, I would do the opposite and I would subtract. So 10 squared minus 11 squared minus 13 squared equals negative 2 times 11, 13 cosine X. So all we've done is these two terms, we moved them over. Okay, so now on the right side of the equal sign, I have this. So now negative 2, 11, and 13 are all being multiplied. So in order to get them to move over to this side, the opposite of multiplication is to divide. So now we'll have 10 squared minus 11 squared minus 13 squared divided by negative 2 times 11 times 13 equals cosine X. So we're almost done. So I need X to be by itself. So this cosine, just the cosine, I want to move that over. So we're going to divide by cosine. So essentially we're going to take the inverse. So I'm running out of space down here, so I'm going to move up here. So x would equal, so if I want it to be by itself, cosine inverse of that whole thing. So that whole entire thing. So it is kind of a big mess. It's tedious to have to move everything, but we have to get that x by itself. So now all we have to do is type this whole thing into the calculator, making sure that you are on degree mode. And when I do this, I get 48.4. And this is an angle, so it would be degrees. Okay, 2 more for practice, but they are pretty much exactly the same. Our next one, here we go. We want to find for that missing angle. So that one that's labeled with x degrees, and we need to know what side is opposite. Since 17 is across from it, we're going to start our equation with 17 squared is equal to, now the other two sides, so 30 squared plus 18 squared minus 2 times 30 times 18 times cosine of x degrees. Just like we did before, these first two terms, they're being added. So in order to move them over, we have to subtract. So 17 squared minus 30 squared minus 18 squared is equal to negative 2 times 30 times 18 times cosine x. Now these three terms are being multiplied. So in order to move them over, we're going to have to divide. So we still have what was on the left side, 17 squared minus 30 squared minus 18 squared, but we're going to divide by negative 2 times 30 times 18. And that equals cosine x. Okay, but now we need x to be by itself. So in order to move just the cosine part, we need to take cosine inverse. And again, I don't have room down here, so I'm going to move up here. So x is going to equal cosine inverse of 17 squared minus 30 squared minus 18 squared over negative 2 times 30 times 18. So typing that into the calculator, and remember we're rounding to the nearest tenth, I get, it's going to be a whole number, 30 degrees. Okay, and last one. This one is a word problem, no picture, but we're going to draw our own picture. In triangle RST, RS is 9, ST is 14, and RT is 6. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to draw. And I'm going to draw it kind of towards the bottom corner. I think that'll give me more room. So RST. So RS is 9, ST is 14, and RT is 6. They want us to find the measure of angle R. So for me, that's the bottom left corner. So now that I have my picture, it's pretty easy to see that 14 is right across from our unknown angle. So when we start our equation, we're going to start with 14 squared equals the other two sides. So 9 squared plus 6 squared minus 2 times 9 times 6 cosine of x. Okay, so I'm going to subtract these first two terms. And that's going to equal what's left over. So negative 2 times 9 times 6 cosine x. Then the next three terms, we're going to divide them over to the other side. and that'll equal cosine of x. Now, in order to get x on its own, we need to divide by cosine, which is cosine inverse. So I'm going to switch sides and put the x here. Equals cosine inverse of everything that's up there. So I'm going to rewrite it. 14 squared minus 9 squared minus 6 squared over negative 2 times 9 times 6. And now all that's left is to type it into the calculator. And when you do that, you should get 137 degrees. Okay, and that's it for the law of cosines. So each and every time I'm following one of these, notice how these pictures don't even have the angles measured. So you always have to make sure that your little a and your capital A are at both ends. So the side and opposite angle, or angle and opposite side, are at opposite ends. Okay, and then that's it. Make sure you have this written down in your notes, and this can get glued down into your notebook. And now you should have an assignment to work on that is already posted in Schoology.